Everybody, I hope you're doing well. I hope you had a great Christmas. Listen, I bought a collection of Beatles vinyl records about 20 years ago at a flea market. They're all old and beat up, but I thought I'd show them to you if you're interested in Beatle memorabilia. These are old Beatles vinyl records from the Capitol Records North American releases. I thought I'd show you this little set. I hope you'll consider watching. Well, I'm going to try to be doing more with my vinyl record collection. I've decided I think it's really pretty good. It's a big mess, and I'm always losing things in there, and it's a pain to find things. Or I go through them, and I think I get them organized, then I go through them some more, and they're unorganized again. But every time I look through there, I find albums I'd forgot I even had. I did a thing on Johnny Winter the other day, and then I found a couple other old Johnny Winter albums in that pile. Thought, shoot, I didn't even include those. But about 20 years ago, I bought some Beatles vinyl records at a flea market here in Georgia. You can see it was quite a pile. I think I paid $20. I guess that was probably a good price. I don't know. The fantasy would be, wouldn't it, to buy a Beatles vinyl record at, for at a garage sale or something and have it be some collector's item worth thousands, and that's definitely not the case. But these are the Capitol Records US Releases. So I think the canonical Beatles discography goes by the British releases, but in America, at the time, we almost forget kids were buying American versions of those, and sometimes they were kind of compilations or the packaging was a little different. But that's what these are. So however beat up they are vintage vinyl records that were from the heyday of Beatlemania. I thought I'd show them to you just quickly. This is Beatles Yesterday and Today. I think this is 66. And this, everybody, is the infamous Butcher cover album that they quickly redid the cover. Clean-cut, wholesome picture of the Beatles on there, which replaced the picture of them with mutilated, oh my gosh, I don't even want to say it, dead babies. What in the world were they thinking? That just shows you how crazy the 60s were, when people sometimes get offended by this or that from the 60s or 70s. They forget how crazy some of that period was. And people just show you anything to get your attention. But this is Yesterday and Today. I think this is a 66 release in the United States. And of course it has Yesterday on it. And it's got Drive My Car, Yesterday, Act Naturally, Nowhere Man, and Your Bird Can Sing, If I Needed Someone. That was an early George Harrison song, I think, right? We Can Work It Out, Day Tripper. So it was a good album. You bought that, and you got to get yourself a good Beatles album, Yesterday and Today. Then I've got this one right here, Meet the Beatles. I think I've got some B-roll where you'll be able to see these better, but that's Meet the Beatles. And this is an early one. It's got I Want to Hold Your Hand, I Saw Her Standing There, This Boy. It's a good album. I'll tell you, early Beatles is not inferior to later Beatles. It won't be long. I've got All My Loving's on here. So this has got I Want to Hold Your Hand and All My Loving. This probably came out around the time of the Ed Sullivan Show. But you've got that nice picture of the Beatles on the back. Brian Epstein, of course, early on, took them out of their leather jackets where they would smoke and wear leather jackets and scruffle on stage and look all kind of gruff. And he put them in those kind of spiffy, fashionable suits, which maybe was a good call, right? I Want to Be Your Man, good song. That's on here. Till There Was You from the Music Man. I always thought that shows the versatility of the Beatles. They did a song from an American musical, Till There Was You. This is the Beatles VI. So, The Beatles VI. And it's got some nice pictures on the back. Some of you probably can do better going through the chronology of Beatles releases because they can get pretty confusing. Like I said, I was actually too young to have bought like Rubber Soul and Revolver when they were out. I was only about 9 or 10 when the Beatles broke up, so I listened to them in the 70s on FM radio. But it's got Kansas City, 8 Days a Week, Bad Boy, I Don't Want to Spoil the Party, Dizzy Miss Lizzy. I was wondering. I don't think Pete Best is on any of these, but you go back to like "Love Me Do," you start to run into songs that Pete Best might have been on. But it's nice you get always some good photographs of the Beatles. There's John, Paul, George, and Ringo. This is the Beatles 65. So another. They've got umbrellas. It's good. In the back, you've got... I always thought that was kind of cool. You'd get little write-ups on these old albums. I have some old Dylan albums where they were like flat-out, big, long, kind of pompous, overblown essays, which is great, They're sort of... They can be kind of fun to read. It might be described as bad writing in some ways, but it shows the seriousness of the music back then. But you get these little write-ups. There are always some ads down there for the other Beatles albums, so, why waste space? So they'd put some of the other albums there. This one's good. It's got I'm a Loser, Rock and Roll Music. That's the Chuck Berry song. I'll Follow the Sun, Mr. Moonlight. So I think these were kind of compilations, they would kind of cherry pick. That was record company release. Something else about a lot of these albums, in this period, they didn't really have album-oriented rock, so they might put what some might call filler on there. They'd have a couple big hits to kind of sell the record and then some filler. Now, we probably would never consider anything the Beatles did filler, but that was quite typical for the albums of the earlier 60s period. In AM music, they'd have a couple big hits and then what you might call filler. I mean, the Monkees or any band like that would do that. The Beatles were too good to have filler, but you might call some of those songs filler. Beatles 65. Now this is another interesting one. This is Hey Jude. That's Hey Jude. So this is later Beatles. Look, that's kind of interesting. I think that shows the late 60s when psychedelia was kind of getting old, and they were kind of like the band or Dylan, kind of getting really earthy and organic looking. Still very countercultural, but kind of more organic, earthy. They're British, so I guess we can't call it Americana, but if they were American, we might call that Americana. But this is a good album. It's got, listen to this, Hey Jude, Revolution, Paperback Writer. Good album. I Should Have Known Better, Lady Madonna, Can't Buy Me Love, Don't Let Me Down, Ballad of John and Yoko. So it's the Yoko Ono period. Rain, Old Brown Shoe. Got a copy of John Lennon, Imagine. I actually have a couple Paul McCartney solo albums too, but I didn't really want to get bogged down talking about those. Then in the pile was a copy of Magical Mystery Tour. Always nice. That's supposed to look kind of cartoony or something, but I looked at it a little more closely. It looked like something out of a horror movie. You know what it reminded me of is that scene in The Shining with Stanley Kubrick, that Stephen King novel, that haunted hotel when they go in the ballroom and all those people are in those bizarre New Year's Eve costumes. You got kind of, what is that, kind of like Ziegfeld Follies or something there. And, of course, this is a classic album. I guess Magical Mystery Tour is not considered one of their better albums, but listen to what it's got on it. Magical Mystery Tour, The Fool on the Hill, Flying Blue Jay Way, Your Mother Should Know, I Am the Walrus, Hello Goodbye, Strawberry Fields Forever, Penny Lane, Baby You're a Rich Man, All You Need Is Love. I mean, if that's considered not one of your better albums, you're doing pretty well. Fool on the Hill. I think that shows the maturity of McCartney, really. in that period. He wrote like. And last but not least, I wanted to show you this one, and I want to talk about this at another time because I do remember this. This is the Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band soundtrack that starred Peter Frampton and the Bee Gees. And I don't know if you remember that, but I probably should do a separate thing on that, but that's really interesting. And this is the film that's sort of credited with tanking Peter Frampton's rock and roll career. Peter Frampton was rock, like Money and Apple of Your Eye and all those early songs he did for Frampton's Camel. So great. This is very much a 70s product. It kind of reminds me of like Xanadu something very 70s. There's the Bee Gees, but there's Frampton. But I'll tell you one thing, I remember this pretty well. I never saw it, but it was at the 12 Oaks Mall in Novi, Michigan. That's right outside of Walled Lake, Michigan for quite a while, and I never did go see it. But I'll tell you one thing I do remember is there were some pretty good Beatles covers. So if you're interested in Beatles covers, it's a pretty good album because there are a lot. Beatles covers is an interesting subject in and of itself. Of course, today it's hard to cover Beatles, isn't it? But look at all these that they covered. The two I remember hearing on here are Aerosmith, Come Together, and Because by Alice Cooper and the Bee Gees, if you can believe it. Alice Cooper and the Bee Gees. That's an odd pairing, at least to us today. Of course, the Bee Gees weren't quite disco yet back then. You've got Steve Martin doing Maxwell's Silver Hammer. Earth, Wind, and Fire doing Got to Get You Into My Life. I remember that being on the radio, too. Bee Gees do Carry That Weight. Frampton does Golden Slumbers. If you like Beatles covers, this is a good album. I think the movie made it kind of a joke, It's probably one of the biggest, it's sort of a classic flop. It's like the Edsel or New Coke or something, one of those really terrible movies. But I think musically it might be worth revisiting, Well, I just wanted to show you those couple vinyl albums. I don't think they're worth all that much. I think I'm going to talk about that Sgt. Pepper's movie a little more sometime. Because I definitely remember hearing a lot of those covers of the Beatles, and they were good. They had kind of a different take on them, but they were definitely done with respect to the Beatles version. They didn't really change them too much, but they did have a different flavor, kind of 70s FM flavor. So anyway, I just thought I'd share you and I'm going to do more little videos highlighting my vinyl collection because I actually have a pretty good one. And sometimes I dig through there and I forget what I even have, Like I said, I actually did that little talk on Johnny Winter the other day, and I was looking for those Beatles records, and I found a couple of Johnny Winter records I'd forgotten I had. I had Second Winter in there. I thought, shoot, that was I should have had that in that other little talk on Johnny Winter. But anyway, I just wanted to share those Beatle vinyl records. I don't think they're worth that much, but they are vintage vinyl, and vinyl is kind of like a time capsule. It's great, always great to go back in time and look at those old Beatles records and remember the days. If you're that old, people would run out to buy them, and that was really before FM. Most of those predate FM radio. So, thanks. God bless you. Hey, have a happy 2022. We could use it, huh? Goodbye.